Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Family Sedan channel. There's a former SEC chief named John Reed Stark, and he's been in crypto news a fair bit lately, so I've been talking about him. The name may sound familiar to you. And he thinks that pretty much everything that exists is a security, including Bitcoin. Including Bitcoin, I kid you not. That is such a minority and extreme position. It's because, again, even Gary Gensler doesn't think that Bitcoin is a security in and of itself. Even Kim Jong-Gensler. So this guy's extreme. He's really out there. And he got taught a little bit of a lesson by Attorney John Deaton, the way I see it, because he critiqued, let's just call it that at the start. He critiqued something that was said by the official LBRY account. You know, recall, of course, the SEC defeated LBRY this past November, but a couple days ago there was a hearing in which we were at the remedies portion, so figuring out what damages, penalties must be paid, that so on and so forth. And the judge is going to write up a full conclusion on that, but the hearing was just a couple days ago. It went really well for reasons that I've articulated in recent videos, including that the judge got the SEC to admit that secondary market transactions do not constitute unregistered securities violations. So that was a major win, actually. That's very good, and should be good if that thought process transfers over to, the SEC v. Ripple case. Even if Ripple loses, that's really good for XRP holders. But John Reed Stark was for a reason I'll show you in just a second here, highly critical of some stuff that LBRY is publicly stating, and it's stuff that I think we'd all agree, because we're reasonable people, that you should be able to stay without fearing reprise from your government. You should be able to say your perspective about a government agency without that government agency then choosing to attack you further or thinking that you shouldn't be saying such things. And so, but here, the part that was extra interesting is after all that happened, and it's supposed to be towards the later part of the video, but Attorney John Deaton, he jumped in and basically schooled John Reed Stark on how his perspective is completely ridiculous. So not only is what LBRY said not wrong to say, it's not some sort of bad legal perspective or anything like that. The judge actually had sympathy and agreed with the tweet that was being criticized by John Reed Stark. And I want to share with you in particular what Attorney John Deaton had to say to kind of break it down, which makes John Reed Stark's position look like the foolish nonsense that it is, frankly. But before going further, I do want to be clear, I do not have a legal or financial background of any kind. I'm not offering legal or financial advice, and you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. All right, so what kicked this all off was a tweet on January 23rd from Eleanor Terrett, who is a Fox Business Network journalist, and she shared some stuff having to do with comments from SEC Commissioner Hester Peirce, which I had previously covered on the channel. And I'm not going to go through it all again, other than the quote that is on your screen. It's shared by Eleanor. This quote comes from SEC Commissioner Hester Peirce. So she's one of the 5 that gets to vote on whether or not to bring legal actions against people or businesses, etc. And Hester Peirce said, quote, "After all, if we continued with our regulation by enforcement approach at our current pace, we would approach 400 years before we got through the tokens that are already securities," end quote. And so Hester Peirce has been very critical of the organization that employs her and says, yeah, we're actually engaging in regulation by enforcement, which John Reed Stark, and I covered this in a previous video, but he wrote this whole really long blog, which is full of nonsense. And he was explaining how there is no such thing as regulation by enforcement coming from the SEC. Says it's a myth. So I already broke that down, so I'm not going to in this video. But just again, for those of you that may have missed it, that's a little taste of the type of human that we're dealing with here. But here's where it gets interesting. So LBRY retweeted that from Eleanor on January 23rd. And this, what I'm about to read to you, ended up getting read in court by the judge because the SEC was being a bunch of whiny baby back biatches about this particular tweet. They didn't like it. It hurt their feels, and they tattled on LBRY to the judge. I kid you not, this is what happened. So here's the tweet that was reported to the judge because it's not reasonable. So LBRY wrote, "This is the biggest call we made wrong. We thought by being honest and open, the SEC would go after us last, but they actually went after us first because we made it easy. We cannot emphasize enough how important it is to obscure your activity from U.S. regulatory agencies." That's the tweet right there. And so then LBRY on January 31st wrote the following. They retweeted that and wrote, "The SEC read this tweet in court yesterday. We stand by it 100%. We have not met a single honest or fair actor in the SEC. We have met numerous liars and psychopaths. Hide absolutely everything you can from them legally and never cooperate or talk to the SEC." So that's what LBRY had to say. And so what I'm going to do next is I'm going to show you, well, I got something from Attorney John Deaton here, but I want to share with you what John Reed Stark had to say also, and then I have some additional stuff from Attorney John Deaton. So after LBRY made it clear publicly that they're standing by the tweet, Attorney John Deaton retweeted that, and he said, "The SEC made a big deal about this tweet. It was read into the record. The judge openly laughed out loud. He told the SEC to stop taking things so personal and said that considering the blood, sweat, and tears that went into LBRY, he understood why they're angry. When the transcript from yesterday's hearing is made public, you will read that the judge made it clear several times that the LBRY case was a case involving no fraud and no misrepresentation. He said LBRY did everything in the open and just got it wrong. He also said repeatedly that although he denied the fair notice defense, the SEC must admit that this case was one of the first non-ICO digital asset cases filed, and it was at a time that clarity wasn't great." And of course, the judge says that, and so fine, LBRY still got a bad ruling. That's unfortunate. But even the judge sees that everything's not perfectly clear. But what's Kim Jong-Ginsler keep on saying? Oh, everything's, I would say, very clear. Oh, shove it. Just no. So John Reed Stark, he also retweeted that from LBRY, and they got into a little bit of spat here. John Reed Stark wrote, "Wow, calling the SEC an agency filled with numerous liars and psychopaths. Not the best legal defense in my humble opinion, but also becoming a fairly typical crypto litigation posture. Not surprising that the SEC has yet to lose a single crypto-related case." And so LBRY, the official LBRY account, they did respond to that and wrote, "Hey, Mr. Law Professor, can you explain in a nation with rule of law why our negative posture towards regulators would affect the determination of law? It seems like you're openly admitting the system is corrupt and biased, but we're not as smart as you." And that is interesting. You know, you got a former SEC chief here saying this is going to be bad for your legal defense. Why would it matter? It's a personal opinion shared publicly, fine. So what? The judge is supposed to feel sympathy for the SEC because LBRY thinks that there are some bad people, including psychopaths, that work at the SEC? How would that make any rational sense? But, you know, John Reed Stark, in part there, it looks like he's just kind of giving up the game. And then he didn't want to get into too much of an intense debate back and forth, and so he simply wrote, "Sorry, friend, I criticize the SEC often, e.g. SEC case against Covington and Burling and other cyber cases /SEC, cyber disclosure rules /SEC and FBI privacy issues. I get the frustration, but name calling in litigation to fire up the mob, Mosque, not a good luck." Okay, except for even if you have critiques here and there, you are majorly on the side of the SEC from like truly indefensible positions having to do with securities laws as it pertains to crypto. I mean, just looking at case precedent dating back to 1976, I'm a regular person. I'm not a lawyer, and I can see this. See, because the thing is, you don't have to have you do not need a law degree to understand the facts and circumstances surrounding this. It doesn't make you a lawyer, but you can, if somebody can present the information in front of you, and you can pick it apart. So you got to spend a little bit of time, but you can figure it out. And I've done that. And you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure this out. He's clearly in the wrong. He is SEC fanboy through and through. And then LBRY responded and says, "Thanks for once again proving that SEC officials can't answer basic questions without prevaricating." And by the way, prevaricate just means to deviate from the truth, and I was not aware of what that word meant. So before recording this video, I used the Webernets to learn what that word means. Again, it's to deviate from the truth, because I have the sum of all human knowledge at my fingertips at all times, because I got a supercomputer in my pocket. So it's okay to not know everything. But isn't it nice to have that handy and available? And so John Reed Stark, he responded and said, "Not sure how I prevaricated. I try my best to be truthful, but I get the gist. I am persona non grata in the Twitter feed. I shall stick to my one love and withdraw." So there you go. So he's running away and hiding. Okay. And then Jeremy Kaufman, he retweeted that from John Reed Stark. And for some reason, it says you're unable to view this tweet because this account owner limits who can view their tweets. That typically happens when somebody blocks you, the one reading it. I'm not blocked from him, so I'm guessing that perhaps that means that John Reed Stark blocked Jeremy Kaufman, who is the founder of LBRY. I don't know for sure. That's my guess because it doesn't show here. But anyway, the tweet that's being blocked there is from John Reed Stark. And Jeremy Kaufman wrote, "Thank you to former SEC officer and psychopath John Reed Stark for admitting what we already knew. The SEC is a biased actor that enforces the law based on its personal opinion of who it investigates, not a neutral agency calling balls and strikes. Remember that the law changes based off of your personal opinion of government officials. This is sometimes called rule of law." There you go. I mean, he's just going like he sees it. He says John Reed Stark is a psychopath. There you go. And then XRP community member and attorney Bill Morgan retweeted that from Kaufman and said the following: "You will be blocked. He blocked me for pointing out the Ripple's on-demand liquidity gave XRP a real-world use that is happening every day. It did not fit his narrative that crypto has no real-world use and is all a fraud. The fact the SRC sued LBRY, and sure he means SEC, and missed the real frauds like SBF, no problem." So I think that John Reed Stark actually did block Jeremy Kaufman. That's my guess anyway. And so then we've got attorney John Deaton retweeting that from John Reed Stark, and then he really broke it down here. And this is where you can call John Deaver, that's not his last name at all. This is where you can call John Deaton the bus driver because he took John Reed Stark to school. Here's what attorney Deaton said. "I was in court." And again, so he's talking about just a few days ago, he was in the hearing, the remedies hearing on January 30th. He spoke directly with the judge because he was amicus for Naomi Brockwell, as I've discovered in previous videos. So anyway, attorney Deaton says, "I was in court. A lesson to be learned regarding the tweet was offered by the judge, but it wasn't directed at LBRY. When Judge Barbadoro read the tweet, he laughed out loud in court and told the SEC attorneys that they needed to stop taking tweets and comments so damn personal. The judge said that he understood why Jeremy Kaufman and LBRY were so angry. He said, this case didn't involve fraud or misrepresentation, and LBRY didn't hide anything and did everything out in the open at a time when the SEC's treatment of non-ICO cases lacked clarity. The judge said that these entrepreneurs put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into LBRY and just guessed wrong. He said he rejected the fair notice defense, but the SEC needed to take personal responsibility for its refusal to provide some guidance and clarity in this space." You gotta love that. I cannot wait to see the transcript, by the way. I will be happy to break that one down when that's publicly available. Because again, it's saying what we know to be true the whole time, that there is not sufficient clarity. And this is coming from a judge that ruled against LBRY still. Which makes it that much more ridiculous, but still, it is what it is. And then Attorney Deaton says, I know firsthand how SEC lawyers show judges tweets. Twice, they marked my tweets as exhibits, asking Judge Torres to not grant my amicus status and bar me from participating in the case. They even lied to the judge and said that I threatened actual violence against SEC staff. And that's true. The SEC did lie about that. These are repulsive... it's just call them psychopaths. They are there. Look up the definition of psychopath. I did it in one video some time ago. A lot of the behavior seems to fit that. Look at what they're doing. It just outright lies, and it's so destructive. My God, these are just terrible creatures that I'm pretty convinced nature just accidentally made. I'm pretty sure that's how nature works, right? It just accidentally happens sometimes, right? Some sort of mutation in a gene. God. It's ridiculous. So I know this is one of those things where it's like everybody can see this. Everybody that's looking from an objective perspective, if you come in with a blank slate and you just hear both sides and you don't have a dog in the fight, I know where you're going to land. Almost 100% of people are going to land on the side that we've landed on. And that's actually what happens. It's hard to find attorneys that believe what John Reed Stark believes. It's hard to find. You can find them, but it's a very small percentage of them out there. in terms of like, individual cryptocurrencies actually being securities and this and that. There's all sorts of stuff. But here we are. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the Moon Family Sedan.